Let me tell you a story. It begins before sunrise in the quiet bushveld near Hodsprut, where the air is cool and the earth smells like dust and wild grass. If you've ever stood near the edge of Kruger National Park at dawn, you know the feeling. The world is still. The sky is barely awake, and somewhere in the distance, a lion exhales, low, steady, ancient. That's where Maurice and Keneth first learned what it meant to care. Maurice grew up in a modest house on the edge of town. His father was a school teacher, quiet, steady, the kind of man who fixed broken desks himself rather than complain about the budget. On weekends, he took Maurice to volunteer at small conservation projects. One afternoon, they freed an injured antelope tangled in rusted wire fencing. Maurice's hands trembled as the animal kicked weakly. "Why do we help them if it costs so much?" he asked. His father paused. "When you commit to care for something," he said, "you don't stop when it becomes expensive." That sentence rooted itself deep in Maurice's heart. Keneth's childhood was different. He grew up in Johannesburg, in a home where success was measured in promotions and polished shoes. His father, a businessman, believed in decisive action. One night at dinner, young Keneth asked, "Dad, what makes someone successful?" "Timing," his father replied without hesitation, "and the courage to move when others hesitate." Two boys, two fathers, two truths. Neither wrong, but very different. Years later, Maurice and Keneth met during wildlife training near Pretoria. From the first hike together, they were inseparable. They studied tracking, they practiced darting techniques, they debated conservation ethics long into the night. When they were hired at a private reserve near Hodsprut, it felt like destiny. They wore khaki uniforms, they bottle-fed orphaned rhinos, they repaired fences beneath a brutal African sun. Staff began calling them the brothers. Maurice paid attention to the animals' personalities, moods, patterns. He spoke softly. He remembered which zebra startled easily and which lion paced when anxious. Keneth studied systems logistics, revenue flow, visitor data. He stayed up late, reading management books, mapping out how the reserve could grow stronger. They balanced each other until the day the sirens came. It happened after a violent summer storm. Wind tore through fencing at a nearby wildlife rehabilitation sanctuary. Branches snapped, metal strained. By morning, one young male lion had forced his way through a weakened section of perimeter fence. He was gone. Police vehicles flooded the roads within minutes. Helicopters thundered overhead. Schools were ordered into lockdown. Farmers sealed gates, roadblocks formed along every route leading out of town. The message spread quickly. Lion on the loose. Shelter indoors. Maurice felt it immediately, not fear for himself, but dread for what would happen if the lion panicked. A frightened predator in open territory rarely ends well. Keneth was already coordinating with local authorities when Maurice arrived. "We establish a containment grid," Keneth said, pointing to a map on the hood of a police vehicle. "Block residential routes. Keep him from heading to Wardtown." Maurice nodded. "Don't corner him. If he feels trapped, someone gets hurt." Helicopters scanned from above. Drones with thermal cameras searched fields and dry riverbeds. Hours passed, then a call came from a farmer. Livestock scattering near a patch of tall grass by a dry riverbank. Maurice moved in with two trackers. There he was. The lion stood half-hidden in golden grass, muscles tense, chest heaving. Mud streaked his coat. His eyes weren't wild with aggression. They were wide with confusion. Police sharpshooters positioned themselves. One wrong movement, one charge, and it would be over. Keneth stepped forward carefully. "Hold your fire," he called to the officers. "We have a clear tranquilizer shot." Maurice lowered himself slightly, keeping his posture calm, not submissive, not threatening. The veterinarian steadied the dart rifle. The lion shifted. A helicopter shadow passed overhead. Now, Maurice whispered. The dart struck. The lion bolted. Police vehicles instinctively surged forward. "Stop," Maurice shouted. "Don't chase him." A sedated lion under stress could run for minutes before collapsing in panic could drive him toward town. The team held position. Seconds stretched like hours. Finally, near the edge of the dry riverbed, the lion stumbled, fell, silence followed. Maurice reached him first, kneeling beside the massive body, checking, breathing, monitoring sedation. Keneth exhaled for what felt like the first time all day. He didn't want to hurt anyone, Maurice said quietly. Keneth looked around at the sealed roads, the hovering helicopter, the armed officers. He just wanted out. The lion was transported safely back to reinforced containment. No casualties, no gunshots, no tragedy. That night, sitting on the back of a truck beneath a sky thick with stars, Keneth said, "If we had panicked, it would have ended differently." Maurice nodded. "Fear always pushes for the fastest solution, and leadership," Keneth said slowly, "means resisting that push." They didn't know it then, but that lesson would return. Years later, as the reserve struggled financially, Keneth stepped into a leadership role. Premium safari packages were introduced. Sponsorship deals secured. Maurice focused on animal welfare. Then came the board's proposal to relocate Thembaran aging elephant, whose care costs were high. Keneth presented charts and projections. "We protect dozens by relocating one." Maurice stood without slides. "We promised him sanctuary." The board sided with Keneth. The elephant left. A quiet fracture formed between the two friends. Then came the drought. Rivers shrank, waterholes cracked, animals grew thin. This was not about optics. It was survival. Keneth worked funding channels and logistics. Maurice drove water tankers himself, sleeping at the reserve for days. One afternoon, during a dust storm, Maurice knelt beside a collapsing rhino, holding its head steady while fluids were administered. Keneth arrived and saw his friend exhausted, covered in red dust, whispering to the animal. Their eyes met. "This," Maurice said quietly, "is why we're here." Keneth remembered the lion, the chaos, the restraint, the choice not to pull the trigger. Something shifted in him. At the next board meeting, Keneth proposed a lifetime sanctuary policy for rescued animals. Leadership bonuses would now tie to staff retention and animal welfare, not just profit. "You'll slow growth," investors warned. Keneth nodded. "Then we grow slower. But we grow with integrity." Maurice stayed. The reserve never became the most luxurious in South Africa, but it became one of the most trusted. Rangers stayed, communities partnered, donors believed. Years later, Maurice and Keneth stood together again at sunrise. Elephants moved slowly across the horizon. "For a long time," Keneth said, "I thought success was climbing higher." Maurice smiled. "It's about standing firm, and that is the tension we all live with. Opportunity pushes us forward. Loyalty holds us steady. Opportunity asks, 'What can I gain?' Loyalty asks, 'What did I promise?' Both matter, but when fear is loud, when pressure builds, when the easy choice promises quick relief, that is when character is revealed. Because, in the end, headlines fade, profits fluctuate, titles disappear. What remains is simpler. The lives you protected, the promises you kept, the moments you chose courage over convenience. And long after the sun rises again over the bushveld near Hodsproot, it will not be the fastest climber who leaves the deepest mark. It will be the one who chose loyalty when it would have been easier not to.